A ship from the First World War that perished in the Second World War, HMS Repulse. Welcome to First Impressions. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, First Impressions Day. I've not done a ship for a little while, so I'm really looking forward to this. There's something quite special about being able to get stuck into a ship kit, I think. HMS Repulse, this is the Trumpeter 1:350 scale version of her as she was in 1941 when she sank in the Pacific, along with the Prince of Wales, which I think sank an hour or so after her. Real shame. It's actually a subject I have not ever modelled. I've never built a model in any scale of Repulse. She was involved in the Bismarck chase, as I recall, but she's probably most famous for her sinking in the Pacific. So launched, I think off the top of my head, I've not checked these details, so forgive me if I'm slightly off, but I think launched in 1916. Major refit in the early 20s, 22 I think, and then another major refit in the mid-30s, 33 to 36, that sort of period, where interestingly, she had the armour of her deck significantly improved, along with some other major modifications, such as getting an aircraft hangar and a catapult, so she had an aircraft. So the refit that should have happened to the hood and never did, but it didn't save the Repulse. So Repulse was sunk ultimately from aircraft combat. She was attacked. Repulse and Prince of Wales were both in the Pacific. They'd been stationed there just before the Pacific War hostilities started, and they were coming back from an operation when they were attacked by high-level bombers, received some damage, and then following on from that, there was another wave of attack with torpedo aircraft, and she took at least 2 torpedoes, which sunk her. More evidence, if you needed it, that by the time of the Second World War, battleships and that sort of arrangement of naval surface ships was just out of date, because it couldn't defend itself to heavy waves of air attack. And it's a bit like what we see today in Ukraine, where you've got expensive artillery and tank equipment being taken out by very cheap drones. You have really expensive capital equipment being sunk by relatively inexpensive aircraft comparatively. So it was the same moment where we said, actually, we need to make the change, and where aircraft carriers and submarines came more to the fore. So an interesting ship for me, because I've never really looked closely at it. So let's have a look at the box. Box art is absolutely beautiful. Depicts her at sea. Looks Atlantic Sea to me, but it says 41, so could well be Pacific. Whichever choice suits your personal narrative. But yeah, a really nice bit of artwork there with her going through the sea, and doesn't she look stunning? One of the more beautiful ships, for me, those that were built towards the end of the First World War have a sort of elegance to them that we didn't see again. So yeah, we've got a side picture there. And a little bit of history in Chinese. So, HMS Repulse in her 1941 configuration in 1:350 scale from Trumpeter, lovely. This is a 2009 tooling, and that's important for me because I think in many ways, some of their older ship kits are better than some of their more recent ship kits. Now, in terms of detail, I think their more recent releases are better. The detail's crisper and they can get more in it and that sort of thing. But they've tended to have dropped giving you railings, which, you know, is an issue for me because your ship's not complete without railings. And they've dumbed down some of the process. So you get less parts, you get parts that are moulded together more and larger part assemblies than you got earlier on. There's just something about some of their older kits that give you better options. So you had the waterline option in almost all of the older kits. Now it's a single bathtub hull, and if you want to waterline it, you've got to butcher it. So there's little things about the more recent kits which I don't think quite are as good as the older kits, unfortunately. This, however, falls nicely into that older kit bracket. So we do have a waterline hull and we do have railings. But let's get stuck into our instructions. So on the front, we've got this depiction that they've got on the outside of the box of her in the Pacific with this strange blocky camouflage. Then we have some information to go through before you start your build, some hints and tips on how to apply decals, and then the key that you're going to use as you navigate through the build instructions. So something I've not said, the kit number is 05312. It's never been re-released. So it's, if you buy it, it is as it was released in 2009. So yeah. Then as we turn over the page, we start our sprue map. And we're starting with the hull. So we've got the upper hull section, the lower hull section, the waterline plate, foredeck, centre deck, rear deck. Now what they've nicely done is they've separated the deck at the breakwater, so you've got no join in the deck. So if you're painting the deck, you can do that without having to worry about filling a join line, which you might get in an academy kit, for example. So nice thought through engineering there. This will be slide molded, so there will be some seams to clean up and bits and pieces, but we'll look at all that in a minute. Then we go to our other sprues. So we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all singular, and you can see the numbers on them, so you can use them for cross-reference. So that's 6. Then we carry on 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Nice to see we've got 2 aircraft, plus 3 etch, a stand, and our decals. Step 1 starts with building up the upper hull. So we're putting the deck in straight away. Because it's a waterlined hull, for some of you that can be the completion of the hull construction. And we've got all the strengthening supports moulded in, so that's a nice way of operating. Yeah, so that seems like a logical place to start for me, so I have no problem with that. Then in step 2, we're into Trumpeter's old habit of sub-assemblies. I won't be putting the main guns on until a fair bit later on in the build, so this is a step I wouldn't do at this point. But you can see this is main armament being built up. And then if we flip the page, you can see why I wouldn't be doing step 2 as my second step, because we're not ready. Already we're at step 3. I'm saying you want to go through these instructions and decide what your process is for building them and renumber it. And also, you probably want to divide these up and create more steps, especially if you're using aftermarket, because if you're going to use aftermarket, you're going to have to make modifications to these things, put new watertight doors on and that sort of stuff, and you want to be able to break this down so you can cross-reference your instructions with your aftermarket instructions more easily. So step 3 has us building up this rear bulkhead where we've got the step down from the deck to the stern deck area there. So very reminiscent of ships of the time, and you know, HMS Hood particularly is one that probably a lot of people can bring to mind that has that configuration. Then we're building up the bulkheads around that, so we can see we've built this little sort of area here. Then we've got more superstructure bulkheads going in, what looks like ventilators, and then we've got a deck going in. So we've built up this rear area with the deck on, and no doubt there'll be a mast coming from there at some point. Then we've got more sub-assemblies in step 4, so secondary armament, which once again is not being fitted, so I wouldn't be doing it now. What they've done is they've started now to put the deck fittings in, so all sorts of bits and pieces. So we've got davits going in for ship's boats. We've got the jack staff going in. We've got the stern anchor going in. We've got double stairwells going in, booms going on. We've got options of plastic or photo etch ladders. That's really nice, and this is what I mean about some of the earlier Trumpeter kits. Some people don't like the photo etch, so will be happy that they can just put a plastic ladder in. Other people like myself can't stand the plastic ladders, so we'll go with the photo etch, but it gives you the option. And actually, as ladders go, that doesn't look too bad. Obviously, you don't get the handrails and bits and pieces, but sometimes these are big chunky things that look ugly, and at least they've not moulded them in, so you've got this triangle of plastic that you've then got to remove with a chisel. So we've got fair lead points and cleats and all, and ventilators and capstans, mushroom vents, all being piled in at this stage. So it's a start at one end, work through. Some of this I wouldn't be putting on just yet. If you're painting the deck, you need to have done that by now. So I'd be wanting to look at painting the decks first, and then thinking about what are we going to add, what needs to go in now, and what we can leave till later on, because you're easily going to catch the davits if you're not careful, and the jack staff. So those might be things that you add later on towards the end of the build. And certainly you want to understand the relationship between railings and those as well. But yeah, this all looks very nice actually, and we've got a ship's boat going in there, so we've not added them to that, so I guess that comes a bit further on. And having said we've not got a chunky ladder, we've then got chunky steps over the catapult point here. So yeah, need to find an aftermarket set for this, I think, is my conclusion from just looking at that. Yeah, definitely. Right, so then we're on step 6, and doesn't look like we've put much on after all of that, does it? But we're moving along, and we've got some structures, lockers, and winding equipment, and cable reels, and more mushroom vents as we go along. So continuing with the deck fittings, booms and ladders and stuff that we put on the previous side. So they are showing you both sides. That's nice. There's a gun tub there. Did I see that? Oh yeah, gun tub going in. I missed that. Gun tub at the rear. And then carrying on step 6, we're adding the secondary gun that we'd built up earlier, going in there, and we've got deck guns, light machine guns, anti-aircraft guns, more cable reels, more ventilators, and more photo-etched ladders. Seems to be quite a few double ladders going in, which is cool. Right, now we've moved to the bow, so same process, ammunition lockers, and we've got paravanes, deck guns, gun tubs, more fair leads, waste chutes, more davits, mushroom vents, single piece breakwater, and then capstans, bonnets, cable reels, 3 anchors, and the large front fair leads all going in place. And then once we've done that, we're going back again and putting more mushroom vents in, a lot of ventilation around the front end of the ship there, more winding gear. So yeah, quite a lot of small deck furniture going in. Always makes a ship look fairly cool, doesn't it, once you've got all that lot on. Then as we get to step 8, we're building up pom-poms, ventilators and rangefinders, some of which we're making several of, 2 and 3. Step 9, and we're building up some superstructure parts, and some of these bits are being used straight into that, so I don't have a problem with the sub-assemblies when you're building them up ahead of that. I mean, you could do it the other way around, build that and then build the sub-assemblies, then add them on. It's neither here nor there, is it? Again, options, plastic or etched ladders, which is really nice. Got all sorts of little supports and bits and pieces going in, and then we've got some photo etch supports in. Not an option, you've got to use the photo etch, of course. Leave them off. Photo etch is always an option. You'll have a more simplified build and also a more simplified look, but each to their own. Then in step 10, we're building up the mast. So we've got plastic starfish, we've got separate supports and brackets, and the tripod builds up quite nicely. Quite a stubby tripod, that. And then our mast part, and then in step 11, so that's a sub-assembly at that point. Step 11, we're building up some more superstructure structures, and then that carries on in step 12. So this is all sub-assemblies here. So again, you're going to want to resequence this to fit how you want to build. So then we've got funnels, going in with photo etch tops as an option, and plastic ones. Lovely. I love that they've given us so many options here. Then we've got floats being put onto various bits and pieces, more superstructure being built up, rangefinders, more superstructure parts, search lamp deck going on with another float, though it looks different to those, and then we're making ship's boats. So in total we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ship's boats to make. Well, no more than that. 3, 4, 5. Is that? I think that becomes that. So it's 3 of those, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in total. Okay. Then we've got bulkheads going on the underneath of that deck area there. And they're having us fit these, which are the hangers, before you insert it on the deck. That's interesting. I'd have to look at that come the time, but I don't think I like that idea. There seems to be 3 little mounting pins. You can just see them there, 1, 2, 3, to fix it in place, but still worried about it waggling about. Does look like we might have interior detail. So let's just have a look. There wasn't an option there to
But H42 looks like the shutter door, and yeah, you might be able to model that maybe in the roof, because it would have folded up into the roof. So yeah, I don't think it would have rolled. I think it would have stayed full and then gone up into the roof. So you might be able to put that in the roof to make it look like it's open and put one of your aircraft in there. But we'll have to have a look at that. That's interesting. Nice to see there's some proper detail in it. Step 14, we've flipped that deck over. You can see this is going to be where we build up the main bridge areas. We've got lockers going on. We've got more ladders, always options. Whenever I say a ladder, it's always photo etch or plastic option, which is lovely. Paravanes and cable reels of different types. I say cable reels, they could be hose reels. There's 2 or 3 different things they could be. Little item going on there. Then we're adding some of the sub-assemblies onto it. So they're having you build this up separately before you install it. I'm not a fan of doing it that way personally. I like to build it up on the ship, just a personal thing. I have done it that way, and I might do it that way on a bigger ship, but maybe, you know, because it's easier to get to. But yeah, we'll have to see. Then we've got the funnels going in. And then we've got, so that suggests that these decks go around the funnels and the funnels go up through it. Funnels go down, that goes over the top, is how I'm reading that, because that's one piece. And, you know, it meets in between on top of there. So, yeah, interesting. I'm not sure I've seen that on a British ship before. So that must have been one of the refit decks added on. Interesting. Right, then we're turning it back upside down again. I wouldn't want to do that either. So we could have put those on before we got to here. We could have put those on there. You could jump from that to that and put on all these supports, and you've got some brackets and bits and pieces. Yeah, definitely need a good study of this and decide how to build this up. Then we're flipping it back and we're putting ship's boats on, the floats on, deck guns. Not quite sure what that is. Is it armour plating, or why would you? No, I'm not sure that they'd do that. Not quite sure what that is. We might get a better idea when we see the plastic. More ladders, gun tubs and ventilators, mushroom vents. Then we carry on, more mushroom vents, another structure going in. And basically the same as we've done on this side, we're doing on that side. Then we've got another little structure going in, some form of building. They're usually called houses, and you've got to understand what's in there. So it'll be like the cinema house or medical house or whatever. More ammunition lockers going on, and another deck going in again that goes around the funnels. Really quite an interesting construction round here. Very, very nice. So that's 15. Then as we flip over, step 16, and we are starting to build up the bridge, what some people call the conning tower. So we've got the bridge being built up. We can see range finding equipment, searchlights, observation equipment, binoculars and the like, all being installed. Yard arms, various bits, tripod legs, and then you've got the spotting top and rangefinder going in. Then we're back to this, so it's jumped around a little bit, and more deck guns, pom-poms, secondary armament, rangefinder, and that's from several steps ago now, the searchlight platform. And more ladders. And just because we've not had enough ladders, then we put more ladders in. And they look more than there is, because at each one there's an option of photo etch and plastic, so you're doubling up. Every time you see a ladder, you're seeing 2. Then we've got more ship's boats going in onto moulded chocks, again aftermarket. and adding the bridging. So step 18, we're making up the cranes, which look like they are primarily plastic, but there is some photo etch which represents the cables. Nice touch. Oh, okay. Different. There's 3 cranes, not 2. Usually there's 2 cranes on a British ship. So, no, I beg. Right. Okay. Start again. So you've got options here: photo etch or plastic. Right. So they show you how to make it up plastic, and then they show you how to make it up photo etch, and you have the option. You can see here option: photo etch or plastic. How lovely is that? That's really nice. Installing the main superstructure that we've been building up, and then installing the main guns that we did in step 2. So, you know, what's this, 6 months, 9 months build, and you've been storing that for all that time, risking getting them damaged or lost or whatever. You just wouldn't, would you? Then we've got, bizarrely, you've put the main gun on, and then you're going to put ventilators in underneath that gun. Why would you do that? Bizarre. I mean, that you could be doing that in step 3 or 4 or whatever it was. That's bizarre. Okay. Then we're adding the ship's boats. We've got the cranes going in, like we've said, and the main mast there going in, along with some more ventilation. Nearly at the end now. This is our last page, step 20, and we're putting in the shaft lines and the single rudder. Step 22, we're making up the 2 Walrus aircraft, which are fixed winged, so you'll have to do some butchery if you want to put one of them in one of those hangars, but it's doable. It's doable. The wings fold back, so you'd have to, yeah, at that scale it's doable. These will be clear parts, which I don't like so much, but hey, at this scale it's only tiny in it. Then step 21, and we're putting railings on. That's a bit lackluster, the instructions there. You know, you're just putting those 2 bits on, or does it go all the way around by any chance? Plus, what about the railings on all these different levels? So they've included them, the generic, and they're not really telling you where to put them. Oh well. Then, once you've put all that delicate stuff on, you're going to put these 2 halves together and hope they blind them up, and then you're going to fill all the hull, and then you're going to sand all the hull, and then you're going to paint all the hull with all of that on top. Again, I doubt there's many modelers that would do it this way. So, yeah. And then finally, we've got an unfortunate nameplate with scale on and stuff. I personally don't like it. I guess other people don't mind it. And then the older style mounting base, which is supposed to look like dry dock keel blocks. There you have it. That's the instructions. A mixed bag, I think, the instructions. We'll talk about that in the wrap-up. So let's have a look at photo etch next. Actually, let's have a look at the paint guide first, as it's part of the instructions. So the usual format where we've got a standalone fold-out colour page. I quite like the fact that they do that. What I don't like is the fact that they always get the paint scheme wrong, and this is no different. So if you look at black and white photos, this looks like it's correct, although I have seen 1 or 2 photos where this looks like the foremast looks like it's black from the bridge roof up, although definitely seeing lots of photographs where it's all in the same colour. But although it looks right in terms of the pattern, the colours I think are wrong. This section here I believe should be white, and the turret sides also, I believe, at the front should be white as well. So always, always, always with a Trumpeter kit, Hobby Boss kit, any of that group of companies, double check your references and your paint guides, because I don't think that ship's boat should be black either. They are correct. It's not an actual black. It's not the same colour as the boot line, and it's a different colour to the steel deck. So they've got that right, but one or two other things on here slightly wrong. However, it's a lovely paint scheme, isn't it? So this is as she was when based at Singapore in 1941. And we've got the aircraft with the correct camouflage. So yeah, not too bad. Pattern's correct, just needs to double check the colours, because I'm fairly sure those should be white and that should be white. Just the sides, not the top. But again, check your references and know what you're doing before you get stuck in there. And of course, no reference at all to rigging, and there's plenty of it on. Right, decals next. I think I've done enough ship kit reviews over the 3 years that this channel's been running for you guys to probably recite what I'm about to say. So I almost feel like I don't need to say it. But for those of you who have perhaps never seen one of my reviews of a ship kit before, I will have to say it. There is not enough decals on this sheet. What we've got is we've got a flag. You give you two options, fluttering and straight, and then they give you the insignia for the aircraft, and that is it. And that is nowhere near good enough. There's no depth markers. Everyone knows I'm going to say this. I go on about it all the time. It's rubbish. Every single ship has depth markers on it. Where are they? Where are they? I'll tell you now. Airfix put them on. Airfix put them on, and yet they don't think that there's any market for them to do ships. Bonkers. That when Airfix do a ship, they do the best ships. But here we go. There is no depth markers. There's no warning signs. There's no plaques. There would have been the name Repulse at the back end of the ship on the stern. Not on there. There's a brass plaque. Not on there. There is brass plaques on the plate as you stand onto the deck with the name on. Could be done as a decal. Not on there. It's just way short of where it could be. It's minimum effort. And I'm not going to say any more because it's my little hobby horse. Ship kit decals are junk. You wouldn't dare do that for an aeroplane. They wouldn't just give you, on a 148 aircraft, they wouldn't just go, oh, there's the national markings, that's all you need. So why do they do it on big ship kits? Photo etch next. So we've got 3 sheets of photo etch, and it really surprises me because we literally saw about 500 sets of stairs go on that model, and they all had an option of plastic or photo etch, and that's actually what you've got. So it's not that many, but as we went through the instructions, it looked like loads of them. So I am not quite sure what's going on there. But yeah. So we've got these, all of this here has plastic alternatives. So this is genuine photo etch that you can use to swap out if you wish. And I love that. I really do love that. It costs them nothing to do it in plastic. So yeah. So the more advanced modeler, fill your boots, and the less experienced modeler who doesn't want to tackle it doesn't have to. Perfect. The other sprues, frets, I should say, are just generic railings, some of which that have got the deck stanchions on, some haven't. They're both the same, both ship rail set B. It says World War II HMS ship rail, so it's basically generic British ship railing. So you cut it to length, and it's generally Not ideal because you end up with stanchions in the wrong place, and all that sort of stuff, and it needs to end halfway through a rail and all that sort of nonsense. But it's better than nothing, and they don't put them in anymore, which I think is not a good thing because ships all have railings, so why wouldn't you put them on? So actually the photo etch is nice, it's nicely laid out, you've got nice long gates so you can cut them off easily. Nothing wrong with that. I generally find that their photo etch is okay to work with. Sometimes can be a little bit thick, but that makes it a bit easier for some people to work with. So yeah, all good with the photo etch. Right then, let's talk hull next. So as we already know, we have a three-piece hull. There's just two parts of it here. So we have the waterline upperworks as a single piece moulding, and we have the lower hull, which is also a single piece slide moulded moulding. Now, on the one hand, I love the fact that you get a waterline version. It's ace. It gives you lots of options for all sorts of things. So if you want to put it on a seascape, you can do that. Fantastic. The downside is the plastic that they use for the lower hull is, I don't know, I guess it's because it's somehow originated in the world of radio control or something, but they use a very different hard coloured plastic for the lower hull, and it's horrid stuff. And they don't seem to be able to do very crisp moulding in it, so it's all a bit soft, and it's absolutely featureless. So if you think about a modern Tamiya ship kit, you'd have all these beautiful panel lines running along it. You've got none of that, unfortunately. And so having the waterline version is fortunate because you can just recycle that and just use that bit. If you do want to put this on, you can always paint in the panel lines, or if you're not fussed, just paint it all up and not worry about it. Sometimes a bit of weathering goes a long way. If you are going to use it, you've got to get rid of all of these slide moulding seams. It's not a big job, to be honest. And then you've got to drill a couple of holes. You can see a couple of circles there. Once you've cleaned all the flash and stuff off, you need to drill a couple of holes through that. That is how they mounted paravanes. And then at this end, it's just seam removal and then building up your shaft lines. And do it at the start of your build, not towards the end. You can put your shaft lines on, just leave the propellers and the rudder off until towards the end of the build, so you don't knock it off, depending on what sort of build jig you're using. But yeah, I mean, it's possibly not even correct in terms of shape. I've not checked it, but quite often there's a bit of an issue with hull shapes, but it looks sort of right, so I'm not too worried about it. If we look at this top piece, we've got all these scuttles here which have got eyebrows on, which is nice, and actually the distortion is not too bad. You could get away with that. Some people would want to fill them and start again. Other people would be happy with it. Quite often you get a little bit of sink at this point here on the prow, and it looks like we might have a little bit here. You've just got this thick wedge of plastic coming together, and so you sometimes get that. But there's none that I can see at the stern. So again, you've not got any plating lines. I mean, these ships were all riveted, of course. They weren't welding them. I spoke to my grandfather about it, and he said, well, welding ships makes them ugly because all the panels tighten and crease. He said, then it's not a classy ship look, is it? So he was he was not a fan of the Americans welding their ships. He preferred them riveted. But anyway, yeah, we've got the torpedo bulges on there, and we've got the doors on there, the coaling doors. So yeah, it all looks as you would expect. It's quite nicely done. Got a nice sharp pointed bow. Hose pipes are solid, so they'd need opening up for a more authentic look. And if you want to have maybe the anchor down on its chain a bit. But yeah, that looks all fine. Nice hull. So opening up the next bag gives me this centre bit. So if you're doing the waterline hull, you glue this in, and that gives you a nice strong base. It's made out of the same base red plastic, and they did that on all of their kits where they did this. So you've got that option if you wish. And then we've got this bit of deck. So this is the deck that goes from behind the breakwater to the end of the shelter deck. It's one single piece with lots of pre-drilled holes and a big hair. So a little bit of clean-up underneath of ejector pins. And we've got quite a heavy bit of seam. I'd argue that was quite a bit of flash actually, but we've got a nicely moulded deck, which is nice to see. Seems to be running on a one shift pattern, so every other deck plank has the same butt joint, and then you've got some fittings already on. So we've got some bollards already on, and a couple of hatches and bits and pieces, but most of it is waiting to be built up. And then we've got the base for catapult, and then the track going into the two hangars. So that brings it very much up to sort of the KG5 type of spec, doesn't it? Yeah, nothing wrong with that. All quite nice. No issues particularly. Some of the holes look like they're a bit clogged up and will need a reamer or something going through, but I'd be quite happy to paint that deck. I think it would come up fine. So yeah, I think that's good. Right, first actual sprue out of the box is sprue B, and at the bottom we've got our shaft lines, and they are mightily chunky. I think replacing those with a bit of metal rod is perhaps the way to go. We've got a steel deck there, which is pretty much featureless, ready and waiting for bits to go on, but it does have some little lockers at the back end there, some hatches. We've got, not quite sure what that is, but it's some form of small deck area. I'm not sure what mounts on it is what I really should say. With a splinter deck that's a splinter shield, sorry, that's quite nice actually, thinned quite well. We've got our funnel cap, which looks a bit chunky, but I don't think that the photo etch actually is going to improve it a huge amount. So yeah, I might be tempted to just leave that, but we'll see come the time. We've got all sorts of bits and pieces here. We've got the rudder, which needs a little bit of a sand, but it's not got any anodes on or anything like that. We've got bulkhead there with a scuttle and doors in. We've got another couple of tubs there. They look a little bit thick on top, but they have a lip. So it's perhaps the lip that's doing that. Platforms, support legs. The I was going to say the A-frames for the shaft lines, but it seems to be a single line, so a single joint. So I don't know whether that's correct or not. I didn't really spot that in the instructions, but there you go. But yeah, we've got 4 there to go with our shaft lines, and more superstructure bulkheads. Pretty much featureless other than the watertight doors, and you would have expected there to be other bits and pieces on there maybe. Quite a nice bit of moulding of that piece there, this where the bridge is going to go, so that's going to go on there. Bridge windows are solid, but they've done them in a way so that they're easy to paint. You can get in from underneath and paint them before you glue the parts together, so that is fine. Yeah, nothing wrong with those. A little bit of sinking in places. Perhaps a little bit more work than you'd want. I don't see any flash or anything, but yeah, not too bad. There's no detail on this bit here, which concerns me a bit. I would have thought there was doors or windows or something there. Right, sprue C next out actually was in the same bag, and we can carry on with this slightly strange grey plastic. It's got a bit of a yellow tinge. I wonder if it's the sunlight's got to it at some point in the past before I owned the kit, because I didn't buy it from new. So yeah, but it's we've got lots and lots of bulkheads here, including the hanger bulkheads, which have lovely detail on the inside and no ejector pin marks, so that's wonderful. I was thinking, you're going to have 24 ejector pin marks in all these little squares, but we don't. So that is really nice and gives me hope that we could do something with the hangers. I like that. All the scuttles have eyebrows, which is nice. I've got some ventilators there and a couple of the ship's boats. So the boats, they're not clinker, but that may or may not be correct. I suspect on this one that it's probably not. They look a bit deep to me. They look unusually deep to me. But no injector marks on the inside and some nice deck, but then the thwarts that go across them are solid all the way down, so probably need to remove those and put some photo etch in ideally. They do look a bit chunky though, and this looks awful. It's just there's no definition on there at all, no marked out windows, no wood marked on it. Yeah, disappointing that actually. Yeah. Again, I think there should be more detail on these bulkhead walls. You'd have pipe works and hose reels and that sort of stuff, cable runs and things like that along there. They were quite busy usually on the outside of these things. And then we've got a couple of capstans and right, okay, the sprue gates on the top of the capstan top, which I'm not sure I've seen that before, or that I like it. Then we've got a bit of deck here, which is steel deck, nicely done with the hatches in, and what looks like a gun mount. Yeah, it's okay. So the next bag has the base in it, and it's a big chunky base for the ship. I think actually going to be slightly wider than the hull. I've not had one this big before, I don't think. They used to use the same size in 1350 and 1700. So I don't think I've seen one this big. So whether they did that in the early days, I don't know. But yeah, you can mount it on. You can leave it this colour, or you can paint these blocks to look like wood or concrete or whatever takes your fancy. Yeah, not everyone's cup of tea. They're not the best. I prefer the sort of the more traditional stand type. Maybe just because that's what I grew up with. You know, the Airfix girder type. Just because the ships don't always sit perfectly on these, you know, they rock about a little bit and stuff. But yeah, it's fit for purpose, isn't it? So that's the base. Now, also in the bag with the base is another bag which has our remaining deck pieces. So let's just have a look at those. So we've got the bow piece first, which has got our chains moulded in, which I'm not a fan of, but is often done. So that means we've not got loose chain in there. So that just needs a swipe over with a chisel to remove those and the securing chains. We've got this texturing on the steel deck, which is interesting. And the points for our capstans, our bonnets, and what have you. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. We've got some little bollards at the front which are quite delicate, and they're angled actually, so I suppose that is correct. And then larger bollards there. Yeah, and then we've got the wooden deck starting, and they've got a step down, so I don't know whether that's right. I would have thought that wasn't right, to be honest. I would have thought steel deck, and you know, it's a bit of a trip hazard, isn't it? Anyway, only one hole in the wooden deck before the breakwater, so just one thing to add in there. Interesting. And again, hose pipes need drilling out and what have you. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's all nicely moulded, nice and crisp, no issues with it, so all good. And then we've got the stern deck area here, which has got nice detailing of the deck, some hatches, and the bollards there all look good. And our rear hose pipe with a small textured steel deck area, and these little gullies, which is nice to see them moulded in. Not in the bow, I've noticed. So yeah, very, very, very nice. Nothing wrong with those. Could paint those up lovely. It shouldn't be a problem. I think that's just flow of plastic in there. Sprue A, and we've got largely two large deck pieces. So we've got this lower deck piece here where the funnels go, and we've got other structures going on as well. You can probably see there's quite a bit of release agent on there. Needs a good wash. I'm not quite sure what those are. I've not seen those that sort of arrangement on a ship before, so I need to do some research and understand what they are around that forward turret there. But it's all steel deck, so it's smooth, not textured in any way, which at this scale I don't mind. And then we've got the boat deck here, and all the boat chocks are fairly solid and featureless and a bit ugly and plain, and really you want to remove them. So again, aftermarket's the way to go. There is an aftermarket set from White Ensign Models, and I think Flyhawk did one as well. Then we've got flagstaffs, and I'm not quite sure what those are, but they're tapered, so they're probably yard arms, I would guess. Lots of ejector pins underneath, so you need to be checking what is visible and what isn't, because you've got structures there and there but not there, so you're going to have to do some prep underneath before you take them any further. Sprue D, and before we look at the parts, I'm going to comment on this plate. And again, those of you that have been following the channel for a while know exactly what I'm about to say. Don't like it. This actually isn't too bad in terms of grammar. Sometimes the grammar on them is dreadful. Was it HMS Westminster where it's got the HMS, then the type of ship, HMS Frigate Westminster, you know, oh no, wrong. I don't like the fact that they've got the scale on there, or the fact that it says scale, 1350 scale battle cruiser. So for me, all of that top line can come off, and maybe we can put a coat of arms and a white ensign or something like that in there and pretty it up, or just not use it. But yeah, I just want them to put the name of the ship on. That's all I need. I don't need and Trumpeter made this on a Wednesday or anything like that on there. And Tammy are a devil for it. Anyway, parts, we've got some bulkhead parts. But here and here as well, some of which are connected to the hangar, I think. And then we've got ship's boats. We've got the Starfish, which are chunky and yeah, not great. Ship's boat, again, bit bland. It's lacking a bit of detail, this. It's not the finest hour, definitely. So really, if it's not a watertight door or a scuttle, they're not depicting it, which is a bit of a shame. And everything feels a little bit chunky somehow, and you've got some pipe work, but even that feels a bit sort of plain and basic. Here you've got tie-down points for it, which improves it no end. Rangefinder shape is nice. Yeah. They're odd. Guess it's the way they're shaped. Yeah, it's all a bit basic and chunky, but painted up, it should look okay. The thing that keeps running through my mind as I look at these parts is, let's get some aftermarket, see what else we can chuck on here. But we've got some gratings and bits and pieces, so there is some detail in here. And this is the thing that goes around the front of the funnel, and one of them seems to have a little raised rectangular lump on and the rest are smooth. I have no idea what they are. If you know, please let me know, but I don't know. Right, next sprue out, and we've got some parts that have come off, so that looks like it's come from there, maybe, I would think. And I can't see, there was 2 sprues in the bag. I can't see where that's come from, but it looks like another one of those there. Yeah, it is. So let's just undo this and see what's behind the foam. Okay. Jack staff of some type. So, yeah, lots of smaller parts on this. This is sprue E. We've got another smokestack cap, funnel cap. We've got the plastic ladders, and when you see them, they're not anywhere near as good as the photo etch. I think that's a roof, isn't it? And we have little posts that go into there. Small little ventilator like the one that's come off, which has quite a bit of sink in it. We've got parts of the tripod mast with ladders already attached on. That's the jack staff from the bow there. We've got pipework that goes up the funnel with open ends, which is nice. Some more of the plastic ladders and ventilators and more pipework for up the smokestack. Very nice. Rangefinder for going on the main guns there. And we've got little boat wing decks with boats on. Yeah, it's all nice and crisp. There's a little bit of sink in places. It's a little feels a little basic in places, but it's not bad. Yeah, some ejector pins we're going to have to deal with. But all in all, not bad. And the ladders actually are quite thin and usable if you want to. It wouldn't be my way of doing it, but I could guess why other people would. Seems to be some texturing on some of these little buildings as well. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a bit of seam cleanup. The gun tubs look quite thin as well. Yeah, little details on the hatch covers that'll all pop out with a bit of a wash. Yeah, a little bit of cleanup and away you go. So our next sprue, which is F, you can see we've got the funnels there in the middle, and then we've got some deck piece that goes around the funnels, as we saw in the instructions. They've done a nice job of the splinter shield with the little stanchions in. That looks nice. Not so sure about these. We've got little steps in that they shouldn't be there. Yeah, not sure what we'd do about that. Might not be so visible once the gun mounts are mounted on. Don't know. Then we've got this deck. The wood has been nicely done, but there's no butt joints in it, so you might have to mark some in yourself. But we've got nice little details of the hatches and bits and pieces in there, so that's okay. Breakwater, nice and thin, very crisp. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Got a little bit of sink on the front though, so it will need a bit of a gentle fill and sand. Again, some ejector pin marks that you're going to want to fill because they'll be visible. And then we've got our mast and one or two other bits, including, I think that's a pyrovane, quite simplified if it is. Yeah, again, nothing wrong with them, just a little bit basic, but again, I'm thinking photo etch on the top of all those and it should all come to life. So yeah, not bad. And the funnels are the critical item there. There's no texturing on them, they're smooth, and that's what I mean by a bit simplified. You know, it'd be nice to have some rivet detail and stuff on there, but anyway, it is what it is. Sprue H now, we have two of these, and we've got bases for the anti-aircraft guns, which actually look quite nice, and if you could put some railings on, they would really look the part. We've got another ship's boat that's a little bit lackluster. No window detail or anything like that on there, or deck detail. We've got pyrovanes, which look okay. They don't have the tails, but they look okay. Capstan with the sprue gate right on the top on the detail, which is a shame. Number of plastic ladders, the bonnets for the chain, they've got a bit of flashing, they'll need a bit of clean up. Then we've got the base for the crane. We've got some lockers and mast feet, cable reels. They're smooth, there's no cable on them. Some separate fair leads and trunking and ventilators. Couple of plastic boxes of some type. One of the shutter doors. So yeah, I think that would be usable in the roof. Yeah, some other bits and pieces. Guns, they're very basic looking. And gun mounts, I suppose. And then we've got the plastic option of the cranes, which actually are depicted fairly nicely. If you paint that up in the grey and then just flood some black in, they would look all right. Then we've got our davits, they're nice and crisply moulded. And we've got some floats there. And then we've got the steps for going over the catapult. And they do look a bit chunky. But I think you could probably modify those and slim them down a little bit. Make them look a bit better without having to replace. Yeah, it's all nice and crisp. I don't see any sink or issues in these parts particularly. Obviously, there's the basis for the main guns. Yeah. This is my theme with this. It's a bit simplified, but what you've got is nicely done. Sprue G, and again we have two of these as well, and we've got the main armament on here. Now, I'm not sure I picked this up in the instructions, but we appear to have main guns. They've been slide moulders, which is nice. So we've got open muzzles, but we've got posable main guns, or we've got main guns with blast bags. And you've got the option, so you can see there's half a blast bag and then the other halves are over here. The blast bags are quite nicely done. The limitation being that you're going to have the guns in a fixed position, or you can have them without the blast bags and put them in an elevated position. I didn't notice that in the instructions particularly, but it's a nice little option to have. Then we've got more ship's boats. Unfortunately, the gates... This is a bit annoying, really. The gates are right on the ridge, so you've got a rim, and they've put the gate right on the rim, so really, really difficult to trim back. And then they've put an ejector pin on the decking inside, and these are the ones that you're going to see. These are they're not getting covered up with another boat inside. So yeah, you've got a lot of work to sort that out. Might even be better to put a tarpaulin over the top and just cover it up. I think that might be the best way. These boats, perhaps not as bad as the others, but still a bit lacking in detail. We've got a yard arm there, fair lead, guns and anchors. The anchors are okay, but a bit plain again. Deck guns look okay. Search lamps, yeah, big sprue gates on those. Big chunky sprue gates, that's a shame. It'll take some time to clean them up. Then we've got the secondary guns and some lockers. Gun tubs. All the gun tubs have looked quite good actually. They've not looked over thick. A number of rafts. and more davits, and then signal lamps there, and more ventilation. I like the fact that the ventilators, some of the big ones have been hollowed out. That's a nice touch. So you put the back on. So yeah, very nice. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Lots of thin parts. There was some foam wrapped around this, I think it was this section here, because of the thin davits and bits and pieces, I think. But yeah, that's nicely done, and we've got some nice options. No other issues that I can see. I don't see any sink. I don't particularly see any flash. Propellers, a little bit of clean up on the tips of the blades when you've taken them off the sprue, but nothing major. And even the seam isn't as heavy as it quite often is. So yeah, all good. Sprue J now, and we have two of these slide moulded, and they've done quite a nice job. We've got rivet detail on here, we've got ladders on the edge there. Shouldn't be difficult to clean up. Sprue gates are all on flat surfaces. Two different turret styles, one with moulded on gun tubs, which I don't mind if they're done well, and these aren't bad, so that's all good. Then we've got what I think are walkways, or yeah, I think they're walkways, and then we've got loads and loads of mushroom vents, and then some very basic looking deck guns. They don't look so good at all. Yeah. But the gun turrets, they look nice, so happy with those. And then finally, we have our clear parts, which is, well, it doesn't have a sprue number, it just says 1350 Mark 1, but there are walruses. So all done in clear parts. There is not much in the way of detail on the wings. We can see the flaps have been marked out, and there's a cross on the top, but you've got these rather thick stanchions, thick plastic stanchions, where you want some nice photo etched crosses there, really. The main body doesn't look too bad for this scale once painted up and de-seamed and what have you. And you put the tail in. You do have a nice engine and a propeller. Again, a photo etched propeller would look a lot better. So yeah, I think if you can get some photo etch to sort that out, you've got two nice walruses there. Now, one to go on the catapult. If you're doing it in an ocean diorama and you've got it waterlined, you could put one of these in the ocean as well next to it, maybe with a crane swung out to collect it. Or of course, you could saw off the wings and fold them and put them in the hangar, which is my gut feel is what I'd like to try and do when I come to build this. So yeah, nothing wrong with these parts. I'm not a fan of the clear parts. I think it just makes it harder to see everything, and I think they've done better versions since, but fundamentally they're okay. So there you have it. Trumpeter's HMS Repulse, 1941 configuration in 1:350 scale. What is my first impression? Well, let's start with the instructions. Instructions are clear, well presented, easy to follow. I don't necessarily agree with the flow of them, but that's a personal thing. So largely, I don't have an issue with the instructions. Paint instructions, they could be okay, but double check them. The pattern essentially looks like it's correct and in the right places and the right, it all seems to be marked out right, but just I'm fairly sure that should be white, and so should the turrets from memory. So you might want to do a little bit of research on that. Decals lackluster as they always are, so and that's no different to many people that make ships, including the likes of Tamiya and Academy. They can all be a bit lackluster with the decals. So actually, not too bad at that point. When we come to the plastic, then it's a bit basic in places. It's a little bit chunky in places. It lacks a little bit of detail, but essentially you've got all the shapes right, and you've got everything you need. The decks are really nice, and you've got plenty of fittings for them. And even if you go with the plastic options, it's not going to look bad. It's not going to look too shabby straight out of the box. The photo etch they supply, all of it is an option, and I love that. It's all an option. You don't have to use it, but if you do use it, you're going to improve the look of your cranes, and you're going to have all this lovely railings on it and improve the look of your ladders. So hull, it's standard for that period. The lower hull half isn't great. The upper hull half is better. There wasn't any major issues with the hull or with the scuttles or anything like that. So all in all, not a bad kit, but not a brilliant kit. It's not going to blow your socks off by today's standards, at least. Like I say, it lacks some detail. Now, low lights, probably the lack of detail on the bulkheads. It's just a bit plain and simplistic. Highlights is the photo etch and the fact they've thought about the modeler and given you those options, which I love. And if it wasn't for cost, I'm sure everyone would do it that way. But it's nice that it's an option and not a need to use the photo etch, because some people simply don't want to do it, can't do it, don't like it, whatever. So yeah, I think all in all, not a bad kit, but definitely if you're a serious ship modeler, definitely needs some aftermarket. I believe White Ensign Models do an HMS Repulse set. In fact, I know they do. And I'm fairly sure I've seen a Flyhawk set for this at some point, which of course would come with swapped out barrels and probably swapped out parts for the masts and so on and so forth, and costs about the same as the White Ensign stuff that doesn't have the turn brass parts. So or 3D printed parts, so you pay your money, you take your choice. So if you're thinking about getting the Repulse kit, you now know what's in the box. I hope that was useful or interesting. If it was, you can always hit the super thanks button. All money goes back into the channel so we can review more kits. So all it remains to say is you enjoy your modelling. Thank you very much for looking in, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.